Hi, I started my own business in 2017 in a creative profession, although many people assume that this is not the best idea for introverts. For those who don't know me yet, I'm Sebastian. I'm a street photographer and freelance DOP and video journalist for small form documentaries as well as filmmaker for social media video. Small disclaimer in advance, I'm anything but a specialist and I'm also not a psychotherapist, so I can only speak for myself with this video here. But before we start with the video, please subscribe to my channel and like the video. Many people draw their energy from the moments in which they surround themselves with a lot of people. For me as an introvert, it's the other way around. Being around a lot of people costs me a lot of energy. I often enjoy these moments and of course I have a circle of friends, but I get energy from the moments when I can work alone on my own projects, like this YouTube channel. But I found out that working independently was one of the best decisions I made in my life, because I have the possibility to work the way I want to. Well, most of the time if I'm lucky. And to work alone or with people that I can work well with, most of the time if I'm lucky. I don't want to overstate the concept of self-employment. Of course, the whole thing has big disadvantages because you are completely on your own and of course you have to fight with existential fears. In the sum of the points, however, I can learn much more as a self-employed person and I can deliver much better work than in an employment. But let's start with my career as a creative. I graduated in 2011 as audiovisual media designer. And then I worked for 6 years in a permanent position. While there, I started as a junior editor and in the camera department. And later I worked as a post-production supervisor, senior online editor and coordinator for digital services for a larger company. I took a lot of responsibility. I really enjoyed having to solve technical problems quickly and spontaneously because this work is also very creative, even if you don't think of it the way in the first place and think of creative work as being more like a designer or a painter. However, as time went by, my work became much more influenced by corporate politics and had less and less creative work. At that time, I didn't listen to the signs my body was showing me at the very beginning of my career as a junior editor because I enjoyed working with Avid and Adobe Premiere. But I hated working with TV producers in the editing room for more than an hour. Most of the time you're editing a film together for several days and weeks, and this part of my job was torturing me more and more, and I realized how I was completely wasting my creative energy. For this reason I rescued myself more and more into the technical side of my job and I worked as a post-production supervisor and online editor. I loved these jobs because I could do them completely alone in my editing room, and the only bad point was the high stress level when master tapes had to be ready on time but the editors and directors had to work longer than planned on the film. Later I went to work for a larger company and had more responsibility and therefore more corporate politics to deal with. Even at that time I didn't know that I was more of an introvert and I didn't know that I had just taken the completely wrong job for my personality. After I was struggling every day to go to work and my body gave me clear signs that it was not a good idea to waste any more of time with this job, I remembered the reason why I graduated as an audiovisual media designer. I always wanted to work on creative projects and I also wanted to make my own small films. As a result, I took the plunge into self-employment and I love this journey. But the hardest part for me about being self-employed is networking. I find it incredibly difficult to meet strangers and thus expand my professional network. However, as an introvert, I have the advantage that I get along with someone, I get a better connection to them than with a random short contact. So on my still relatively short way in self-employment, I've met not many but very great contacts with whom I share many interests and I can work very well. Projects like the 9 to 4 film I realized with Tristan from Surfer Machines or the sneaker clips I shot with an art director friend are results I'm very proud of, and I think my younger self and also my somewhat older self in a permanent position would never have dreamed that I would in one day work on such great films. In the pandemic, as you know, we all had time to work on ourselves, and while I realized that the isolation and the lockdown helped me a lot with my creative process, don't get me wrong, the pandemic was a horrible event with nothing to be happy about, but the world was suddenly quiet and I learned a lot about my creative work. It dawned on me more and more during this time that I'm a very introverted personality. I honestly didn't think about the subject at all before. At the same time, the world stood still, gigs were cancelled, and I realized that as an introvert you have quite a bit of trouble expanding your professional network quickly. I still made it through the pandemic, and I was able to continue working on great projects. I'm sure my freelance lifestyle helped me because I'm more flexible to what's going on in the world. Being aware of my personalities, I have been able to find a few ways to continue working independently in the creative field as an introvert. For example, I found for myself that I don't have any aspirations at all to work on big sets and shoot great commercials or feature films with big teams. Instead, I prefer to work in smaller teams on personal and very close documentary films as a DOP. On the other hand, I have the advantage of being able to work exactly as it suits to me, and I hear very personal stories from people. As an introvert, I'm good at catching vibes and I can react well to moods and situations. That's pretty important when a person tells their story in an interview. Still, I usually have a small team with me on shoots, and I try not to do jobs like that too often. Besides working as a DOP and post-production supervisor, with which I make most of my living, I'm also a street photographer and I sell prints of my pictures through my gallery. I love to observe and portray society. Similar to my work as a filmmaker, this is an introvert skill that I can use for myself. I notice a lot of little nuances that other people might not pay attention to. So that part of my work I can do completely on my own. However, I would probably go crazy if I had to work 100% alone, so I'm very happy with the alternation between both worlds. So don't listen to others who are telling you that you have to be a networking genius to work in a creative field as a freelancer. You just have to be aware of your strengths. What does that look for you? Was it a hard road for you to get a job that works well for you as introverts? How did you approach a problem? Drop me your input in the comments, I appreciate any tips. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. See you next time.